So the readings recommended that in preparation for meditation, we actually do what are called head and neck and breathing exercises. So I'll just run through those as I do them. So the head and neck exercises are to drop the head forward, chin to the chest, and back up again, and do that 3 times. Then drop the head back and upright again. Do that 3 times. And drop the head down to the right shoulder, ear to the shoulder. Do that 3 times. And then ear to the shoulder on the left side, 3 times. Don't overstrain, just do it nicely, gently. And then drop the chin to the chest and then rotate the head around 360 degrees for 3 complete rotations. Once again, just very gently, don't overstrain. And then chin down to the chest and rotate to the left, 360 degrees for 3 complete rotations. And it was suggested that these would help the forces that flow through the neck area and the throat area during meditation, but also has the benefit of aiding the optic nerve to help eyesight. And the breathing exercises, breathe in through the right nostril and out through the mouth 3 times. Then in through the left nostril and out through the right nostril 3 times. And these breathing exercises have, once again, a positive influence on the channels through which the energies are raised during meditation. Now, the readings recommended the saying of the Lord's Prayer, not only as a prayer of protection, but also a prayer of attunement and the impact that it has on the 7 spiritual centers or chakras, because each part of that prayer, or in some cases more than one part of each of that prayer, has an effect on one or more of the chakras. And so the idea is to try and feel the energy in each chakra as you say that part. But I suppose you've got to learn how it relates. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Another recommendation was to use an affirmation or positive statement. So I'll just repeat the one from the chapter Know Thyself in the Search for God, Book 1. Father, as we seek to see and know thy face, may we each as individuals and as a group come to know ourselves even as we are known, that we, as lights in thee, may give the better concept of thy spirit in this world. And then another prayer of protection that was recommended in readings. As we open our hearts to the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, beauty, and might, we throw about ourselves the protection found in the thought of the Christ. And then we'll just go into the silence of meditation for between about 8 to 10 minutes, just a short one. Would you end your meditations now, please? And bring your awareness back to your room. And Father, Mother God, Christ Jesus, we pray now that the energies that we have raised during our meditation period may go out to those who are in need of support, healing, for those whom we are concerned, and especially may go out to those who have no one to pray for them, that they may receive whatever it is that they have need of at this time. Thank you, Father. Amen. Okay.
So the first reading is from The Inner Power of Silence, Week 2, Part 1, Chapter 3, How to Meditate. Chapter 3, How to Meditate. This chapter presents one elegantly simple and highly practical technique for meditation. Of the dozens of meditation systems that exist, this 11-step approach has a universal quality, drawing as it does upon recurrent themes and techniques found in most of the sources used for this book. This parallelism will be demonstrated in Chapter 7. Step 1, set a spiritual ideal for your life. Every meditation period should begin by taking time to remember a sense of purpose that leads you to the practice of meditation. If you have not recently taken time to formulate carefully the ideals that you want to have guiding and directing your life, now is a good time to do so. What is meant by the word ideal? As pointed out in Chapter 1, an ideal is not a goal, which refers instead to the product of our actions. An ideal refers more to the purpose for an action or the spirit in which it is done. The question to ask yourself is this: What spirit of living do I want directing every part of my life? In other words, ask yourself what sense of meaning and purpose you want to strive for in the way you live your life. Admittedly, not every action, thought, or feeling will reflect that ideal because in our humanness we often fall short. But each of us can aspire to a profound sense of meaning, a higher way of seeing life and others and self. As you determine your spiritual ideal, be sure it comes from deep within yourself and not from the expectations of others. In other words, a spiritual ideal for your life must not have a quality of ought or should. Throughout our lives, our parents, teachers, and other authority figures tell us what our purposes and aspirations in life ought to be. A true spiritual ideal needs to come more authentically from your own self. How can this deeper, more genuine level be tapped? One way is to draw upon the peak spiritual moments you have already had in your life. Each of us has caught glimpses, however briefly, of a higher spiritual reality. Each of us has tasted a deeper, more profound sense of purposefulness to life than the perspective offered by conscious physical life. What were the peak spiritual moments of your past? They may have been one or two special dreams in which you seem to be touched by a higher reality or a deeper prayer or meditation experience. Your peak spiritual moments may even have been in waking life, a loving moment with someone, a day of heightened creativity, or a special time out in nature. Think back over your life and recall several such special times, moments to be deeply honored and remembered, even though the business of daily living causes us to forget or ignore the impact they had upon us. To choose a spiritual ideal, then, takes several minutes to sit quietly and remember these peak spiritual moments. Try them to relive them and let these memories shape your thinking and feeling so that for a moment you become the person you were in those special experiences. Once you are in touch with that different place within yourself, allow into your mind a word or phrase that describes that state of consciousness. For one person, the spiritual ideal might be loving freedom. For another person, it might be oneness with the light. And for still a third, simply service. No matter what words you use, they should describe a place of consciousness within yourself that you have actually touched and tasted. A spiritual ideal must be something living for you, not merely a philosophical abstraction. In setting a spiritual ideal this way, you may sense that even higher ideals are possible. In fact, one's spiritual ideal is, in effect, a statement which affirms, "This is the highest meaning and purpose of life that I know as reality because I have personally been touched by it." Once you have set a spiritual ideal for your life, begin its meditation period with a brief moment to remember that ideal and its connection to the meditation period. Meditation is a powerful technique for moving you more quickly in the direction of the ideal you hold. Step 2. Set and maintain a consistent time of day for meditation, even if initially the length of each session is brief. It's the consistency that counts. That consistency should include the regularity of daily meditation, as well as the keeping of a particular time of day for the silence period. Examine your life and the various kinds of demands you encounter in terms of time and energy. Taking these factors into account, at what time of day are you most likely to be able to still your mind and body and keep your attention focused upon your spiritual ideal? That is the best time of day for you. For one person, it may be the first thing in the morning. For someone else, before lunch. For a third person, before bedtime. And for yet another person, it may best be done by awakening in the middle of the night. By keeping the same time each day, you can take advantage of a principle about the nature of the human mind. Your mind can be trained to make a change in consciousness at the same time each day. For example, you have probably already discovered that it's possible to train your mind to awaken at a particular time each morning to get ready for work. In this case, the training is to make the change in consciousness from the sleep state to the normal waking state. But the same principle can be used for moving from the normal waking state to the consciousness achieved in meditation. By keeping the same time each day for your meditation period, in effect, you begin each meditation period with a running start. How long should your initial efforts at meditation last? A good length for beginners is just 3 or 4 minutes of silence. At first, even such a brief period will seem inordinately long, yet with practice, you will get used to longer periods of keeping attention focused. Most meditators find that they want to build to at least 20-minute meditation periods. However, let such a length of meditation build up over the course of many weeks, increasing at a pace that best fits your temperament. Step 3, maintain long-term attunement practices as an ongoing preparation. This procedure for meditation invites you to think of the technique as occupying more than just 15 or 20 minutes each day. In a sense, you are always getting ready for your next meditation period by the way you treat your physical body, by what you feed your mind. Each meditator needs to design a personalized kind of preparation program. Consider the way you treat your physical body as an essential ingredient to more effective meditation periods. Everyone has experienced the way changes in diet affect both mood and attention span. The simplest example of this can be observed after eating a large meal. A body preoccupied with digestion finds it difficult to stay consciously alert. However, the subtle effects of diet are probably even more important. Many meditators find that the elimination of certain food substances is crucial to optimal meditating. For example, eliminating or minimizing sugar, caffeine, alcohol, etc. Each person must decide from careful experimentation what kind of diet preparation works best. Most meditators also find that a regular physical exercise program becomes an ongoing kind of meditation preparation. Again, it's important to determine what fits your lifestyle, but activities such as running, swimming, yoga, or walking are highly recommended for most people. Each meditator should also identify ways of thinking that can be either an enhancement or an obstacle to meditation. For example, if you hold resentful feelings toward an individual until that pattern is changed, it constitutes a stumbling block toward more effective meditation periods. Of course, we should continue to meditate even though we have not cleansed ourselves totally of attitudinal and emotional stresses. However, the more we are able to monitor what we feed the soul, through our daily attitudes and emotions, the better chance we have to obtain the deeper levels possible in meditation. As a first step in this kind of preparatory effort, identify just one or two attitudes or emotions that particularly need conscious work. Then do the necessary work. Step 4. Just before each meditation session, use your own helpful aids for attunement. Here again, select those disciplines and activities that work best for you based on personal experimentation. Most meditators find that when they first sit down to begin the meditation session, they still need some activities to help them enter the silence, even if they have been engaged in ongoing preparation. Head and neck exercise. One kind of pre-meditation aid involves the physical body. For example, the Edgar Cayce readings recommend a simple head and neck exercise be done at the beginning of meditation. This exercise seems to alleviate much stress and tension we store in our necks and shoulders. 1. Sit up straight and let your head drop forward slowly and then bring it slowly back upright. Do this 3 times. 2. Next, slowly move your head as far back as you can, comfortably move it, and then slowly return your head to an upright position, a total of 3 times. 3. Next, do 3 similar head movements to the right side. 4. Then do 3 to the left side. 5. Then do 3 circular movements of the head, first in a clockwise direction and then in a counterclockwise direction. Another aid for attunement many meditators find helpful is to work with breathing. Although lengthy, somewhat forced deep breathing exercises are possible. It is also easy to use a more gentle approach to the breath. The simplest technique is to spend 1 or 2 minutes simply letting all of your attention dwell upon your breathing without trying to change the rate or depth of each breath. In other words, attention to the breath becomes a method for beginning to focus attention. Seemingly quite simple, this powerful technique is highly recommended. Some meditators use a form of quieting or inspirational music at the beginning of meditation to evoke feelings of calm and uplifted spirits. Experiment with different kinds of music to find something that works for you. Some individuals also find that chanting is helpful at the start of a meditation session. Similarly, burning incense may create a physical stimulus that helps to both center the mind and evoke desired feelings. Step 5. Begin with prayer. Remember that prayer and meditation are complementary. Beginning a meditation program for yourself does not reduce the importance and helpfulness of a prayer life. The two aid each other. Spend several minutes in prayer before you begin to meditate. Remember that prayer is an activity of the conscious mind, whereas in meditation, you will try to still the conscious mind. So during this prayer period, let your conscious thought be active, but highly purposeful and directed. You might like to work with a prayer of thanksgiving, petition, praise, or confession. Many people working from a Christian orientation find this an especially appropriate place to work with the Lord's Prayer. The Edgar Cayce readings, for example, strongly encourage meditators to use the Lord's Prayer before beginning the silence period. The readings encourage us to say the prayer slowly, feel the meaning of each part of the prayer as it quickens and awakens a higher state of consciousness within the physical body. Step 6. Repeat silently or aloud an affirmation corresponding to your spiritual ideal. Here, affirmation is roughly equivalent to the Sanskrit mantra. That is, the words chosen as a focus for attention need to have a powerfully evocative quality, able to awaken within us strong feelings of the ideal. What words should you choose for your affirmation? You might take a favorite line from the Bible. Example, be still and know that I am God, or from other sacred scripture. Or you may write your own short affirmation which encapsulates your spiritual ideal. Some meditators keep their affirmation quite brief and, in fact, use the short phrase they have selected to designate their spiritual ideal. You may also find it helpful at the beginning of your meditation session to create in your mind some visual imagery that relates to your affirmation and helps you get in touch with it. For example, some meditators find it helpful to imagine themselves sitting in a spatial spiritual place. The image of that setting then allows them to identify more quickly with the life purpose which the affirmation represents. Step 7. Focus your attention on the words of the affirmation and any images you're using until you begin to experience the feeling and spirit behind the words. In this step, you are directing your conscious will to concentrate and keep your attention one pointed. However, the effort you make to direct attention is not an intellectual effort to dissect the affirmation or analyze the images. Instead, let your attention rest upon the feeling and spirit the affirmation begins to call forth from your unconscious mind. This stage may require much practice because of the strong tendency for your attention to drift off to distracting thoughts and emotions. Step 8. Release any images and the words of the affirmation and hold gently to their feeling or spirit. Once you have reached a point where you recognize that the affirmation has begun to do its work, that new feelings are being awakened, then drop the words and any images you have created. This is the silence of meditation. Here, you rest in silent attention in the quiet spirit of the ideal your affirmation represents. At this point, words are unnecessary. They have done their job by getting you back in touch with another way of feeling and seeing yourself and life. Step 9. When your attention drifts, repeat 7 and 8. In other words, you can expect that your capacity to stay in the silence will be limited. At first, you will probably find after just 10 or 15 seconds of silently holding the feeling of your affirmation that a distracting thought or emotion will grab your attention and pull you away. When you recognize you have been caught up in a distraction, go back to step 7 and once again hold the words of the affirmation and or image related to them in your attention until you re-experience their meaning and spirit. You may have to repeat this sequence many times in a single meditation session. Even experienced meditators have to go back frequently and reawaken to their sense of highest purpose by recalling the affirmation and then re-attaining the silence. Step 10. Surrender all efforts to make something happen. Steps 6 through 9 include effort on your part to direct the meditation session. Even if you have no expectations or desires for some special experience in meditation, conscious effort and the exercise of will is necessary in steps 6 through 9. However, The last phase of your meditation should include a short period during which you fully surrender, discontinuing all conscious effort. When you have spent sufficient time holding in silent attention the feeling and meaning of your affirmation, and you feel permeated by its spirit, release even the affirmation. A good way to experience the surrender called for in step 10 is to refocus your attention on your breathing. In other words, once you have let the meaning of your affirmation permeate both your conscious and unconscious, then spend several minutes in attentive breathing. This breathing exercise at the close is not to alter your breathing or to attempt to force a change in consciousness by an extraordinary breathing technique. Instead, by letting your attention focus on something as simple as your breath, the power of what you have subconsciously achieved in the previous steps is able to touch you even more deeply. The key to this 10th step is the word surrender. There must be a sense of giving up, but not of giving in, letting go of all mental efforts to force something to happen. Step 11. Conclude by praying for others. This will be the closing for most meditation sessions. After you experience the release and the silence of meditation and feel a rejuvenating and an inner awakening, share what you have received through prayer. Since energy is directed by conscious intention and thought, through prayer for healing, we can bless others for whom we have concern. Unless a person has specifically asked you for prayer, surround with light the individual about whom you have concern. In so doing, you provide an energy and even a state of consciousness the person can draw upon when ready to make changes in his or her life. On the other hand, if someone has asked you specifically to pray for his or her own healing of a particular condition, then it's appropriate to pray for specific changes in the person's life. Always add to each of your prayers some form of God's will be done. This distinction between prayers for individuals for whom we have concern and prayers for individuals who have asked for such help is meant to ensure a respect for the free will of each individual soul. We have presented 11 steps in a universal approach to the meditation process, stopping along the way to explain and illustrate each of them. To feel the flow of these steps, especially steps 4 through 11, review them now as a continuous series of actions, each step moving smoothly and its own time to the next. Do you have any expectations about what will happen during meditation, perhaps between steps 10 and 11? Many people do, and so the next chapter deals with the meditation experience itself. That concludes The Inner Power of Silence with 2, Part 1, Chapter 3, How to Meditate.
Interesting. Very good. Thank you, Lalita.
That basically sums up what we actually do when we meditate, doesn't it?
Exactly. No, it was good.
Thank you.
It's interesting, this attention to focusing on the breath, because the breath is normally an unconscious process. If you stop and think about the breath, you're changing your state of consciousness. So the body is already alert to the fact that there's a change of consciousness happening. Because otherwise you're not conscious of breathing. But when you stop to think about it, you're changing the consciousness from the unconscious mind the autonomic nervous system running the breath to the conscious nervous system running the breath. So the body straight away knows that something's happening. There's a change in consciousness.
I find focusing on the breathing actually keeps me focused rather than actually speaking a mantra. The mantra initially puts me in focus, but once I stop saying the mantra and I focus on the breathing, that really keeps me in tune better than the mantra. I guess the mantra sort of still uh, involves a lot of thinking for me, the brain, whereas the breathing is actually just a mechanical process for me.
That sounds like the step 10, doesn't it? Because that is what step 10 is about. Once you've done the affirmation, I especially like you to conjure the feeling, conjure the emotion of the affirmation, and then go into silence. So, and then it says after that to do the breathing focus. So there's sort of 3 sort of stages there.
One thing that I've found helpful is rather than just thinking about the affirmation and the feeling of the affirmation, to actually speak the affirmation and do it slowly and just feel the vibration of the words. And if you say that slowly about 10 times and then go into the silence, you're left with that feeling just vibrating within you of speaking those powerful words from the affirmation. Okay, the next one, The Inner Power of Silence, Week 2, Part 1, Chapter 4, What to Expect During Meditation. The beginning meditator may be disappointed by the infrequency of unusual experiences during meditation periods. Expectations may have been built from a report of remarkable experiences by others, or from assumptions about what will happen when we encounter the infinite. The baseline experience, as it were, is stillness in both body and mind. This quality begins with the absence of conscious thought or conscious reaction to the immediate environment and the lack of bodily movement. Stillness may include a sense of being, an awareness beyond words of one's existence in the present moment. Regular meditators report experiencing stillness during most meditation periods. Beyond the common experience of stillness, many meditators and teachings are in agreement as to some types of other experiences that may arise in meditation. These include: 1, the meditator reports losing consciousness of the body. Often this is described as a feeling of being suspended above the body, or as a complete inability to contact physical sensations. When the desire for silence comes, not a single thought arises. He who is looking inward suddenly forgets that he is looking. At this time, body and heart must be left completely released. All entanglements have disappeared without trace. Then I no longer know at what place the house of my spirit and my crucible are. If a man wants to make certain of his body, he cannot get at it. This condition is the penetration of heaven into earth, the time when all wonders return to their roots. Wilhelm, 1962, page 56. Cayce warns that one should not attempt to get out of the body during meditation, although one may lose all contact with physical sensations, since the purpose for this activity is to bring the consciousness of the infinite into the finite, physical expression. From Cayce reading 1782-1. Number 2, the meditator reports an experience of contact or union with God. These reports vary somewhat, and Govinda points out that each of us will experience the infinite in terms of our own needs. Those who suffer from bondage and confinement will experience liberation as infinite expansion. Those who suffer from darkness will experience it as light unbounded. Those who groan under the weight of death and transitoriness will feel it as eternity. Those who are restless will enjoy it as peace and infinite harmony. Govinda, 1969, page 24. Number 3, the meditator reports speaking in tongues or glossolalia. Stanford speaks that such individuals are always in a state of emotional, if not spiritual, excitation. 1977, page 115. The Kundalini energies rise until they reach the thyroid or throat chakra. However, because of imperfections of the conscious ideal and the lack of cleansing of the bodily consciousness, the energy manifests at this level through the voice. In some cases, it draws upon the unlimited knowledge of the pineal centre, and the words spoken are actually of a language unknown to the conscious mind. In other cases, it is pure garble from the levels of the subconscious. Number 4, the meditator reports experiencing the void. However, this void is not empty blackness, but a state of awareness pregnant with all the potentialities of life. Govinda quotes an ancient teacher to make this point. The potentiality of the great void is so beautifully expressed in the poetical words of the 6th patriarch of the Chant school. When you hear me speak about the void, do not fall into the idea that I mean vacuity. It is of the utmost importance that we should not fall into that idea, because then when a man sits quietly and keeps his mind blank, he would be abiding in a state of the voidness of indifference. The illimitable void of the universe is capable of holding myriads of things of various shapes and forms. Govinda, 1969, page 117. Number 5, the meditator reports multidimensional experiences that cannot be described in logical terms. Govinda compares these to a stereoscopic picture in which a higher degree of reality is achieved by the combination of 2 different points of view. Similarly, an experience of higher dimensionality is achieved by integration of experiences of different centres and levels of consciousness. Govinda, 1969, page 136. Yet these experiences cannot be explained to a lesser 3-dimensional consciousness, which imposes distinct limits upon expression. Number 6, the meditator reports the experience of a brilliant white light. Underhill notes this phenomenon in the lives of nearly all mystics. Buck lists it as one of the characteristics of cases of cosmic consciousness. A possible explanation for this experience will be offered in Chapter 8 in the section on the pituitary gland. The light is the experience of the union of the infinite nature of man with the finite. In his commentary on The Secret of the Golden Flower, Jung refers to this light as the symbol of the Tao. The unity of these 2, life and consciousness, is the Tao, whose symbol would be the central white light. This light dwells in the square inch, or in the face that is between the eyes. Jung, 1962, page 103. Having identified a variety of experiences that may be encountered in meditation, we must repeat and extend the point made at the beginning of this chapter. The meditator should not anticipate any specific experience and thus be disappointed when it does not occur. The experiences described in this chapter are presented so that if any of them do start happening in your meditation life, you can realise you are not alone, nor is something wrong. Furthermore, meditators should not evaluate the quality of their meditation according to the frequency or kinds of special experiences they have during meditation. In chapter 1, we talk about entering meditation with a sense of giving of oneself, rather than with the idea of getting specific benefits or experiences from meditation. Again, we suggest evaluating your meditation by asking yourself, how deeply did I experience giving myself to something higher than myself? And that ends chapter 4, what to expect during meditation.
Thanks, Russell.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
That part with the glossolalia, the speaking in tongues, is interesting. I never knew that it's one of the after effects or something that can happen in meditation. Speaking in tongues.
Yeah, that's it does happen for sure. It's interesting that there's an explanation for it there, and he's saying that when we get to the bit on the pituitary, they'll explain even more. But it may be garbled, but it can be a language. Sometimes people access an ancient language. So I guess the mind has these many layers that we can get to.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because I used to go to a Pentecostal church in Sydney, and the speaking in tongues, there's always someone who will interpret what someone has actually spoken in tongues. I have never experienced it.
Me neither. No.
I was just going to say the same thing. Oh,
you go, yeah.
sorry, no, I was just going to, Lolita just said what I was going to say. And I remember it happened to Dad once, and I can't remember what the interpretation was, but there was someone in the group that was able to interpret.
I like the bit about the stereoscopic picture. So it's basically saying multiple layers of point of view coming through. So you're seeing multiple images at the same time. So that, I think that sounds really interesting. We'd be aiming for that one.
I liked how they spoke about it's not what we get from the meditation experiences, but what we give. And they're gifts, but not to get too caught up on how many of those experiences we have, and to kind of remain grounded about that. I thought that was important to note.
Yeah, definitely.
It's pretty interesting when people report all of these beautiful colours, mauves and different colours that they're seeing in meditation. This was decades and decades and decades ago when I was first starting. And in our group, people were having all these amazing experiences, and I was thinking, I'm getting nothing. But what I was getting was strange bodily movements, which was, my head tilting back until I was staring at the ceiling, and then I'd try and drag it back, and then it would go back again by itself.
Interesting.
And I found out that there's a name for that. It's called kriyas. And people have their spontaneous bodily movements, and there's nothing to be worried about. Because I used to think, gee, if anyone's looking at me, they'll think, what a strange way he's meditating with my head right back staring at the ceiling. I couldn't help it.
Interesting.
My head just wanted to do that.
Yeah. Wow.
I like the one of the Govinda quotes about individuals experiencing what they need to experience.
That's
Well,
beautiful.
I had a feeling my head movement, doing that, was to release something in my neck. That's what it was, doing that deliberately.
Wow. Okay, so this one is chapter 5 from this Inner Power of Silence, how to use meditation for guidance. So once you've begun a regular commitment to meditation, you may occasionally add another phase to some meditation sessions. You can receive inner guidance concerning specific decisions and problems in your life. Within you is a level of consciousness, an inner resource of wisdom that can offer helpful instruction and solutions to specific challenges you face. Pointing to this inner possibility, the Edgar Cayce readings state that the highest form of psychic perception is the inner contact each of us can make with the spirit. In one reading, the question was asked, what is the highest possible psychic realization? The answer was that God the Father speaks directly to the sons of men, even as he has promised, from Cayce reading 440-4. Many people shy away from using meditation as a source of help for making decisions. Something within us makes us skeptical of inner promptings. We worry that we might make catastrophic decisions or be led astray by subjective illusions. However, if you are clear about what you are looking for, then the level of misunderstanding or misinterpretation is much less. Choose your approach to guidance according to the type of guidance you want, whether you seek an answer, additional information, or a confirmation. One approach is to seek guidance which provides a specific answer to a specific question. For example, you might pose to your inner consciousness questions such as, should I keep taking my medication despite its side effects? Or should I finally tell my next door neighbour what's been irritating me about his behaviour for the past 6 months? Or what new type of vocation should I explore? In each of these instances, the exact answer itself is sought. A second approach to guidance is to search for additional information so you can formulate an answer at a later time. With this technique, you reserve the role of final decision-making for your conscious life, but ask your unconscious self to give you more facts or additional perspectives, which might lead to a better answer. Examples of questions following this approach include, what's my boss really feeling, which leads to his actions that are so confusing to me? Or what kind of past life experiences have I had with Richard, which make me so attracted to him? In these examples, the seeker is hoping to arrive eventually at a decision on how to act towards the boss or how deeply to get involved with Richard. Yet inner guidance is sought only to provide the information that might lead to a better conscious decision. A third strategy for seeking guidance involves looking for confirmation of a tentative conscious decision. In this instance, the seeker looks for an inner sense of affirmation or warning concerning an intended course of action. For instance, one might pose these questions to the inner self. Will it be best for my daughter if I follow through on the decision to enroll her in a private school? Or is the best financial result to be expected from following through on the planned sales of my automotive stock? None of these approaches is clearly superior to another for all situations, although some situations will be more suited to one of the three approaches. The Edgar Cayce readings most often encourage the use of the second and third approaches. In other words, the seeker should be careful about turning the entire decision-making process over to the unconscious and relying upon it alone for the answer to questions. Another way to say this is, God wants us to learn how to make decisions. In the divine plan for humanity, the personal will is to be awakened and used in a constructive manner. And yet, paradoxically, it is in our best interests spiritually to befriend and cooperate with an unconscious will that is always available to direct us wisely. The paradoxical nature of this principle can be frustrating to the seeker. Yet we arrive at the best approach for attuned decision-making when we find a balance between two kinds of will: the conscious personal capacity to choose and the deeper understanding of a transpersonal will within the unconscious. The following 9-step technique is one framework in which to experience such a creative balance. Step 1, set your spiritual ideal. This is the same as step 1 in chapter 3 on how to meditate. Anytime you plan to use meditation as a method for getting inner guidance, take time to review the wording of your spiritual ideal and ask yourself whether or not those words still represent the spirit of living to which you aspire. Step 2, feel the readiness of a question to be answered. The following 7 steps will work only if the question you are considering is one you are ready to have answered. In other words, there is a rightness of timing for virtually any life challenge. The seeker must be sensitive to when a question is still in the process of emerging and when the timing is right for an answer. When you feel really ready to learn the best way to approach some problem, then the time is right to proceed to the 3rd step. Step 3 is carefully formulate a wording for the question. At step 2, the challenge or difficulty being reviewed may still be somewhat vague, but at this 3rd step, you must formulate a specific wording for the issue. On paper, write out what you seek to know. Clarify for yourself whether you're looking for a direct answer, more information, or confirmation of something you're already inclined to do. Step 4, consider all the factors bearing on this question that you have some current knowledge about. This step involves working with the conscious mind to list all information relevant to your question. Suppose your question was, should I move to Arizona? In this 4th step, you would list all relevant information you already have, such as feelings of other family members about a move, job prospects in Arizona, considerations concerning the climate, employment possibilities, etc. Step 5, arrive at a tentative conscious decision. Using rational common sense, as well as your own intuition, weigh all the factors listed in step 4 and formulate a preliminary answer to your question. Make sure that the tentative answer is in keeping with your spiritual ideal. Additional steps follow this one, but you need to feel good enough about your tentative answer to follow through on it without compromising your ideals. Step 6, obtain guidance concerning your tentative decision from outer sources. At this stage, you may want to turn to a trusted friend or a professional counsellor for advice. Or you may want to use such esoteric resources as psychic readings, astrological readings, numerology, or I Ching. Another form of outer guidance many seekers find helpful is the periodic occurrence of synchronistic signs and life events which contain a quality of guidance. By themselves, such meaningful coincidences may not be a reliable source upon which to base an important decision, yet once you arrive at a tentative conscious answer, synchronistic events may give you a feeling of confirmation or warning. These coincidental signs may take the form of things you read or hear about, which in an inexplicable way seem to provide you with feedback on the issue you're concerned about. For this 6th step, work only with those forms of outer guidance you feel comfortable about. Individuals may differ widely in their choice of resources. Step 7, look for guidance coming from inner resources. Many different avenues are available to each of us for tuning into a higher wisdom and higher will. Some people receive these inner promptings through imaginative reverie, and others find that dreams provide such guidance. But no matter what other avenues may be pursued, be sure to include meditation guidance as a resource. Using meditation to receive guidance is quite simple. However, the seeker must not use his or her question as a kind of affirmation, but rather should complete all the steps described in chapter 3, including prayer for others, before turning to the question or problem at hand. In other words, take several minutes at the end of your meditation period to quietly pose in your conscious mind several times the question as you formulated it for step 3 of this chapter. Hold the question in mind and feel your sincere desire to resolve the issue. Experience your openness to understand the question in whatever new light or with whatever required changes a deeper wisdom within you may offer. After silently posing and contemplating the question, begin to listen. The listening must be broader than merely listening for a voice, no matter how still or small. In fact, some people do receive guidance through an inward kind of auditory form, hence clairaudience as one form of psychic perception. However, most people receive their guidance in some way other than by actually hearing words. The listening process should encompass one's whole being. Listen with your body, listen with your imaginative forces. Listen with that part of your mind which formulates new concepts and perspectives. What should you expect to receive? Although individuals differ widely in how they experience guidance, people report the following types of inner response. A strong feeling or intuition of the rightness or wrongness of the tentative conscious answer from step 5. A strong feeling, intuition, or image of what is likely to happen if the tentative decision is followed. In this case, the unconscious is not making any decision, but precognitively giving impressions of likely future events, leaving it to the conscious self to decide whether or not that is the desired result. A new, previously unconsidered solution. Although we may often hope for this result in seeking meditation guidance, it is not necessarily the most frequent result. A direct answer or solution is sometimes presented, but frequently it is merely a piece of the puzzle with the remaining parts left to be filled in by the conscious self. By way of analogy, imagine that you asked a skilled mathematician to be your tutor in a difficult algebra course. Now you are stumped on one particular problem. The tutor doesn't provide you with the entire solution, but gives you a piece of the answer to get you started on finding the rest of the solution for yourself. Impressions which provide a new perspective on the current question or problem. In other words, the insight received in meditation may not answer the problem, but instead suddenly allow you to see the question from a whole new angle. Sometimes this new view can then quickly lead to understanding the appropriate way to respond. Recognition of another question to be dealt with before the principal concern can be addressed. In other words, we may have posed a question we sincerely desire to have answered, and yet there are other issues to be resolved before it's possible to formulate the desired answer. Suppose you've posed the question, should I go back to graduate school to obtain further job skills? In meditation, you may receive impressions not directly concerned with an answer to this question, but instead calling to mind other questions that must be resolved first, such as, are you making the best use of the skills you currently have? Or have you resolved how you contribute to the dissatisfaction you feel with your current job situation? Before moving on to the next step, seek meditation guidance as described for step 7 on more than one occasion for a single question, particularly for issues of great personal importance. Step 8, formulate a guided decision upon which you are ready to act. Take into account the input provided both from outer sources of guidance as well as inner guidance such as meditation. Then reconsider the question and write down a revised version of your answer, one that you're ready to begin to apply. Make sure this decision is something you could conceivably follow through on and still be in keeping with your spiritual ideal. Step 9, begin to apply the decision and yet respond constructively to obstacles which may arise. Almost invariably, when we begin to put into motion a decision, no matter how meditatively we may or may not have arrived at it, obstacles and resistances arise. Sometimes these obstacles can be traced directly to an origin within oneself, although most frequently we experience them as coming from outside. Of course, our hope is that the guided decision will be easy to bring to fruition, and yet seldom is this the case. When obstacles arise, the seeker is likely to respond in one of two non-productive ways. First, we tend to try bullheadedly to force our way through the obstacles. Something within us says, I've gotten my guidance and now I'm going to make it happen, no matter what anyone else says or does. This kind of stubbornness very rarely leads to a happy ending. The second frequent response is to give up. In other words, something within us expects that everything will quickly fall into place if we have tuned into a higher wisdom, and this almost lazy part of ourselves doesn't want to have to make any persistent efforts. A third alternative is a more productive way of responding to the natural obstacles which arise. It requires a willingness to persist in applying the guided decision and yet maintain an openness so that the obstacles or resistances can teach us and help us to refine the guidance to a more applicable form. In other words, through meditation or any other form of guidance, we may have the basic theme of the best decision and yet not have a proper understanding of the right timing or a way in which to proceed, or of the people who will be involved in bringing the decision to fruition. The best approach involves a careful blend of consistent effort with an open-mindedness that looks upon guidance as an ongoing process and not something that was resolved once and for all in step 8. We must let life continue to instruct us. Continue to keep a regular meditation period as you apply your guided decisions. You can expect that signs and indicators and even further meditation guidance will continue to help you. This byproduct of a regular meditation life is one of its most valuable fruits. This chapter on guidance through meditation concludes the section on practicing meditation. Conscientious, regular effort in following the steps outlined in chapters 3 and 5 will help any individual take important steps along the path of integrating the spiritual with the physical and mental through meditation. This section has also discussed some fundamental principles underlying meditation, and the next section goes on to further enhance your understanding of the whys and hows of this process.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Liz.
Interesting.
Thanks, Liz.
It's interesting that quite a few of those ways of utilising guidance through meditation is very similar to the type of guidance that comes through our dreams. And exactly the same way that quite often the dream guidance might be a part of the puzzle, it might be a prompting to do something else, not necessarily a full-on yes or no sort of answer to something you might have been thinking about. But you can see that the results of meditating on an issue or a problem can trigger similar things out of the dreams that you receive guidance through those.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a repetitive process. You keep asking, keep going back. You might get some answer, but you've got to keep sort of working on it in a way, and then you'll get results that way.
I liked the idea that timing is so important. So, you know, it might even be too soon to be asking the question, or
Exactly.
we've got the question, but we still need to wait.
That's right.
Everything in God's timing.
Yes.
A
Patience.
season, yeah. A season for everything. You cannot force the sun to rise when it's not time to rise, and you cannot force the sun to set when it's not time to set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was it?
A bit of a
King
temptation.
Canute, who couldn't cause the tide to stop.
Going back to the dreams, I like something that I read about the dreams, that the dreams comes to us because in our waking state, we cannot hear God's messages, so that it has to be in our sleep that the screen, as if in a movie, comes up in a dream, and we can see clearly the picture.
Yeah, that's chapter 33 of Job. There's that statement: God speaks to us once, nay twice, but man perceiveth it not. In dreams, slumbering upon the bed at night, God openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instruction.
Oh, was it in Job? Is that in Job?
Job chapter 33.
Have to look that up. 33. Cool. Very good. So we can't be lazy and hand all our decision making over to our unconscious mind. That is not going to work. We've got to work on things, and
we've got to put that infinite into the finite using our own wills, our own conscious endeavors.
I also like the fact of the coincidences. You know, the answer comes in while someone is watching television or something, reading a book, or even hearing someone says something which actually resonates to the answer that you're seeking. I like that saying that coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous.
Yeah.
The synchronicities.
Synchronicities.
That's usually when I'll take it as confirmation if it's matching what I'm tending towards. It's like, oh, okay.
I thought it was a great piece of information. I think lots of people really struggle to make decisions, and it was quite practical. It was empowering. It talked about obstacles, and I think it was a great process in discernment. And I think when people can't make decisions, their spiritual ear shuts down and they're not using their intuition. So it's giving you a practical approach, but also reminding people that they've got a power within their own intuition that they can tap into as well. I thought it was really helpful. Yeah, it was good.
Did it actually says there why we have to actually pose the question after praying? You know, you do the meditation and then we do the intercessory prayer. Did it actually says that we have to do it after the intercession, after praying for someone?
Yeah. So do your normal full meditation session.
Yeah.
And then pose the question. Yeah.
And don't think about the question at all during the meditation.
No.
So just wait until you've done all of that and then ask the question again.
After praying for someone, right?
Yeah, the whole session.
Okay.
Don't think about the question at all.
Interesting.
Which is very, if it's a very huge question and it's been on your mind a lot, it would be quite difficult to go through that process without thinking about it. So,
Very challenging.
Yes, yes.
And I'd prefer to keep it away from meditation.
Yeah, because it can interfere. It can easily interfere with the meditation, can't it?
It's interesting why Ed Cayce suggested getting up at 2 a.m. to meditate, because then the conscious mind is totally switched off and there's not much other psychic things happening around you because everyone else is asleep. So it's an ideal time to meditate because you can just focus on the spiritual.
That's what the Brahma Kumaris people do as well. They actually do their meditation something like 4 o'clock in the morning, for the reason that you just said, Russell, that because people are asleep, there are not a lot of negative vibrations. People are asleep.
No interference.
Yeah. That's what they do. So it's very challenging if you're not a person who wakes up early and you go onto one of their weekend workshops or weekend retreats, because you will get up at the time of the morning and you all meditate together. You can't pretend that you actually did it, because you actually have to go into the meditation room together and meditate at some ungodly hour. 4 o'clock in the morning.
Gosh.
That's not ungodly hour. That's supposed to be a godly hour.
Godly hour.
Yeah. Well, that was very interesting. That's good. So I think next there's chapters 5 and 6 remaining. 2, 5, 6. And then there's part 2 of the book.
Oh.
So I guess we can just carry on with the book until we finish it. I'll have a look at those part 2. Part 2 is a similar sort of layout, Russell, is it, to part 1? Just more a different material?
No, it's understanding meditation with 4 chapters. Who we are, what role meditation plays in who we are, what happens in our bodies when we meditate, and how East meets West in meditation tradition.
So that's the part you
That's
might
interesting.
Yeah. Because he's mentioned a little bit about the Christian mystics at the beginning, and then he sounds like again in that section. But otherwise, it's more. There's a bit about just practical application, which is apparently derived from all 3 major.
It's nice having them intertwined.
Yeah, it's good to read that. Yeah, good to know.
East meets West. Yeah, I love this book. I really like, of all the books that we have read, I really like this book for some reason.
It feels very familiar because some of the other books covered similar material, but this is nicely laid out. It's very methodical and ordered.
Very, yeah.
No, it's good.
And being a pedantic person, I think that's why I like it.
Yeah.
I like the order.
And I just love getting all this detail on how to meditate compared to just sit down and breathe and use an affirmation, light incense, all the other things that you might come to from the rest of the world on how to meditate. This is very, very detailed. It's really good.
Just going back to the speaking in tongue, it actually says in the Bible that there are different gifts. The speaking in tongue and the interpretation are 2 that stick into my mind in relation to the speaking in tongue. So when someone started to speak in tongue while doing the meditation, that can be interpreted as actually an expression of the Holy Spirit, right? Interesting.
There was when we used to live at Ocean Grove, across the road from us was a 5-acre campsite where people from, at Easter time and Christmas, from people from all over Australia and possibly overseas, came from Pentecostal churches, and they camped there. And up until probably 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, they were speaking in tongues, which was a bit hard to get to sleep with the noise that was coming from there. But otherwise, it was a beautiful spot to have all this bushland opposite for the rest of the year. But during Christmas and Easter, it was a little bit overpowering to have the noise of the people all speaking in tongues.
Oh.
The Holy Spirit was alive over Christmas and Easter.
Yeah, certainly was.
Hmm.
Oh, was that at Pentecost in the Bible when that so Pentecostal church. Penny dropped.
And the people said, who are these people that they're speaking my language? And they can understand it. Yeah.
Apparently, my sister-in-law, when she was little, during the my wife used to say that when she was asleep, my sister-in-law, Maria's sister Anna, she used to speak in tongues.
Wow.
To speak this other language, and it was almost as though she was communicating with someone, because she'd be talking in this other language and then wait for a while as though someone was talking back to her, and then she would talk again in this foreign language. And it was a definite language. Maria used to say it was a definite language that she was speaking. But while she was asleep.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
When she was a child, do you mean?
Yeah, when she was little.
Did she ever did they ever talk about it? Well, at the time? What were you dreaming about last night?
Well, I don't think she was old enough to really understand any of that. So.
But Maria just recalled it.
Oh, she remembered it happening, and she said it was a definite language, but one that she wasn't familiar with. And growing up in Europe, she was familiar with a lot of different languages.
We should probably organise our next meeting. I think, Lolita, the 6th is you've got a wedding, is that right?
Yeah. I'll be in Sydney. Yeah.
So we can go to the following, which would be the 13th. The 13th September, a good date. I think it's good for me.
But you guys can go ahead without me. I'll just watch the recording on YouTube. Don't delay it on my account, please.
We would miss you so much, Lolita. I don't know about that.
Oh, I feel so loved. So yeah, as I've said, don't delay it on my account. But if you really want to wait till I'm available, then yeah.
Well, I don't really mind. I think that's okay. Would that be all right with everybody else if we just the 13th? It gives you more time to reflect on what we've done, because we do these things and you don't have a lot of time to practice them, and to you can go and try this out, and that gives you 3 weeks to try something out and then come back and go on with the next one.
Is that the 13th of October, Lizzie?
Yeah.
I'll be traveling then,
okay.
but that's okay. Yeah, I'm going to Scandinavia, but yeah, just for 3 weeks.
So lovely. Yeah.
Be fun.
Well, the link is there on the YouTube. We record the parts of this session that are the reading of the book. So that's put up there in about 5 days or something like that. By a certain number of days, it'll be posted on YouTube. Keith does that on his channel.
Okay, thank you. I'll have a look on YouTube then.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yes, and happy travels. I hope you have a great.
Yes, happy travels.
Thank
so
you.
nice
I'm
to
going
meet
to
you too,
Iceland
Jen.
as well.
Iceland.
So I'm going to Iceland. So that'll be
Wow.
good too.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to try and see the Great Northern Lights.
Mm.
And the
Beautiful.
volcanoes.
Yes.
And the volcanoes, yes, yes. They have quite a lot of volcano eruptions lately. So
Mm.
I know.
that's, yeah,
I
yeah,
hope they don't get too
That's quite
wild and
interesting.
wild while I'm there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, okay.
I can't attend at the 13th because we are having our conference here in Sweden.
Your conference.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Ooh.
On the 12th and 13th of October. So it's
What are
That
you
would be
having,
interesting.
Eva?
Their conference.
the conference,
Oh, you're
the
having your
conference, the
conference.
yearly conference. Yes, yes, yeah.
John
Okay.
Chattat's speaking at that one, isn't he?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And Santosh Kaler from
From
England.
Great Britain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So it looks like October 6th for you guys. It's only me going to miss out. it's only going me to miss out. Whereas if you put it on the 13th, 2 people are missing out.
All right, maybe we'll go with the 6th and you can watch it online.
Yes.
And then we'll go the 2 weekly. All right. Okay.
So the 6th.
All right. Well, let's call it a night then. And
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Meditating.
Take care.
Thank you.
bye, everybody.
God
Thank
bless.
You.
Thank you,
Bye.
Lizzie.
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.